Doctors, what's the most absurd thing someone has ever asked you? I was working the night shift in the ER when this guy in his mid-20s came in holding his hand. He'd wrapped it in a dirty towel and kept saying it was no big deal, but the towel was soaked through with blood. I got him into a room and asked what happened. He said he cut himself making dinner. Normal enough, people come in all the time with kitchen accidents. I unwrapped the towel and immediately knew this wasn't from chopping vegetables. He had a deep gash across his palm that looked like he'd grabbed a knife blade with his bare hand. The cut was clean, perfectly straight, and went deep into the muscle. I started cleaning the wound and told him he'd need stitches, maybe 8 or 9. He nodded and seemed fine with that. Then he asked the question that made me stop what I was doing. If you stitch it up, will it leave a scar? I looked at him confused. Sir, you have a wound that's almost to the bone. Yes, this will definitely scar. He got this disappointed look on his face and asked, what if you use the really good stitches? The expensive ones? I explained that all stitches leave scars when the cut is this deep. It's just how skin heals. That's when he pulled out his phone with his non-injured hand and showed me a TikTok video. It was one of those life hack videos claiming that super glue leaves less scarring than stitches. He dead serious asked me, can you just super glue it instead? I thought he was joking at first, but his face was completely straight. I told him that medical grade tissue adhesive exists, but it's only for minor cuts. His wound was way too deep and dirty for any kind of glue. He'd need proper stitches and probably antibiotics. He shook his head and said, but the video showed a way bigger cut than this. Just use super glue from the store. I'll even go buy it right now. I tried explaining that TikTok medical advice isn't real medical advice. That video was either fake or showing something completely different, but he wasn't hearing it. He insisted that stitches were outdated and that real doctors use super glue now. I told him I've been an ER doctor for 7 years and I've never once super glued a wound like his. He looked at me like I was the crazy one. Then he asked to speak to a different doctor, someone younger who knows about the new techniques. My nurse Sarah was standing there trying not to laugh. I stayed professional and explained that every doctor here would tell him the same thing. His wound needed stitches, period. That's when things got really weird. He pulled his hand back and said never mind then, started wrapping the dirty towel back around his bleeding palm. I asked what he was doing and he said he'd just go home and super glue it himself. I tried to stop him, told him about infection risks, nerve damage, all the complications that could happen. He didn't care, said he'd watched tons of videos and knew what he was doing. Before I could say anything else, he walked out of the ER still bleeding through that towel. Sarah and I just stood there in shock. 20 minutes later, the same guy came back in. His hand was wrapped in paper towels this time and he looked pale, really pale. I got him back into the same room and unwrapped his hand. He'd super glued the wound shut all right, but the glue had sealed in all the dirt and bacteria. The area around the cut was already red and swelling, plus the glue had bonded to the paper towels he'd used to apply it. Now we had to remove dried super glue and paper towel fibers from an infected wound. I had to literally scrape the glue off with a scalpel while he winced in pain. The whole process took 40 minutes, way longer than if he'd just let me stitch it in the first place. Once I finally got all the glue and debris out, I cleaned the wound again and gave him a numbing shot. Then I stitched it up with 12 stitches instead of the original 8 because the edges were more damaged now. I also had to prescribe him strong antibiotics because of the infection. His insurance didn't cover the extra visit or the antibiotics. So instead of a simple stitch job that would have cost maybe $200, he paid over $800 and ended up with a worse scar anyway. As I was finishing up, he had the nerve to ask if he could leave a bad review because I didn't offer him the super glue option the first time. I just stared at him. Sarah told him the review system was for actual medical concerns, not for TikTok advice we refused to follow. He left looking annoyed, still convinced he was right. 3 days later, he came back because the infection had spread despite the antibiotics. We had to admit him for IV antibiotics, all because he trusted a random video over actual medical training.